Well, my experience as an African American in the United States Navy has been rewarding. Initially, I checked on board my first ship in Long Beach, California. Had a ward room of about 21 officers, and I was actually the only African American, but I was well accepted, and everything went well. My first tour of duty, and then we had that was a number of other African American officers checked on board. So the crew was well receptive of all the African American officers on board. I mean, that was not a situation where I felt uncomfortable as an African American on board that ship at that particular time. Today's kids really don't understand what the civil rights movement was all about, even before that time. And we see that day to day in what's going on with our youth. If they really would take time to learn what actually was done, what our ancestors went through prior to the movement and then through that civil rights movement, then I think our young African Americans, especially our males, would have a change in the way they conduct themselves as overall. I mean, that's not to say everyone conducts themselves in that manner, but even at the school, if you were to poll the school, some would not even know what Brown versus Board of Education is. That's when we desegregated schools. And that, if you look at it, if that time is not really that long ago, if they talked to their grandparents, they could tell them more about how it was to be desegregated, how schools were desegregated during that time frame. In fact, two schools here in Pensacola High School and Washington schools were those schools. Pensacola High was the all-white high school, and Washington High School was the all-black high school. And I learned that from my parents and my mother-in-law. They tell me how they had to walk past Pensacola High to get to Washington High. And that was prior to the integration of the schools. So that's some things that kids need to understand about the civil rights movement. I mean, when we as Black Americans, before our time, were not treated equally up until the civil rights movement, and we're still trying to cross that barrier. So back to your question, is it important for them to learn? Yes, it is.